The Liberals seem to be just fine with breaking the law as long as they can protect jobs. In this instance, the jobs are those of Quebec sex workers. You won't believe this crazy video. Justin Trudeau's SNC-Lavalin problem is spiraling out of control. At Wednesday's Justice Committee hearing, former Attorney General Jody-Wilson Raybould testified that she had been subjected to a months-long pressure and intimidation campaign by the Prime Minister and by those who work in the Prime Minister's office. They wanted her to defer prosecution of crooked company SNC-Lavalin to preserve Liberal votes in Quebec. It's sleazy. And speaking of sleaze, French-language publication La Presse is now reporting that SNC-Lavalin spent $30,000 to accommodate the grotesque vices of Muammar Gaddafi's son during his Canadian visit in 2008. Evidence gathered by the RCMP and exposed in a civil dispute between a former SNC-Lavalin executive and the company revealed that SNC-Lavalin paid for naked dancers, porn movies, and quote-unquote many prostitutes for Saudi Gaddafi when he was in Canada on an invite by SNC-Lavalin. In fact, in 2008, Gaddafi moved to Montreal and Toronto for several months at the urging of SNC-Lavalin to apparently improve his English and meet with mayors and politicians. Now, I wonder who those politicians were, don't you? Now, during this time, it's also reported that Gaddafi paid for nothing out of his own pocket, but rather all of his debauchery was paid for by SNC-Lavalin petty cash. I wonder what else that petty cash is paying for now, don't you? So now this corrupt Liberal-linked behemoth of a company is tied to the exploitation of vulnerable women by a violent dictator's son. I wonder what Trudeau has to say about all this. He's a feminist, right? I mean, he's got to be upset, hurt. Maybe he might even cry a little. Just watch this exchange when Calgary Nose Hill Conservative MP Michelle Rempel asked the Prime Minister about all this in the House of Commons Wednesday afternoon. It's a little long, but you are not going to believe your ears. Here.
Prime Minister conspired to stop the criminal trial of a company charged with bribery, and this is what the bribery looked like.
Order. I invite members to be judicious in the use of words. There are certain accusations we cannot make here except in certain ways. So I'd ask the member to be careful in the use of her words. Order. Members ought to be able to be familiar with the rules, and I'm prepared to talk to them privately if they wish. Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
This is what SNC's intervention looked like. $30,000 worth of Canadian prostitutes given to Muammar Gaddafi's son. This is the so-called victimless crime that our woke, feminist Prime Minister is moving mountains to cover up. When did the Prime Minister learn that SNC-Lavalin paid for prostitutes for Muammar Gaddafi's son?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, we will stand up for Canadian workers. We will stand up for good jobs right across this country. And we will do so in a way that is consistent with our values, with our expectations, and with the rule of law. That is the matter that we will stay focused on in this. We will defend Canadian jobs, and we will ensure that we are being consistent both with our values and with the rules and laws in place.
Okay, that was a legitimately crazy response to a question about SNC-Lavalin facilitating the exploitation of vulnerable Canadian women by a dictator's child. Wouldn't you say? Trudeau says he's protecting Canadian jobs. Whose jobs? Exploited sex-trafficked women or the men and pimps who are doing the sex trafficking of them and then raking in $30,000 for the victimization of these women? Trudeau went on to say that this lined up with his values. Which values? His feminism? Because I'm old enough to remember when so-called feminists were appalled, were against the victimization and commodification of vulnerable women for the benefit of powerful, evil men. Call me old-fashioned that way. Now, I've got a long memory, and this sort of turning a blind eye towards women in sex trafficking is a bit of a Liberal Party tradition. It happened 15 years ago, and it was, in fact, the original Liberal Strippergate. Back in 2004, Immigration Minister Judy Sgro came under fire because there was a blanket authorization allowing exotic dancers to come into Canada as temporary foreign workers. Apparently, the Liberals would have us believe that Canada just didn't have enough strippers or domestically trafficked sex workers to meet the demand. Labor shortages, am I right? Sgro said that she tried hard to end the program but had resistance from the Human Resources Ministry of her own Liberal government. Eventually, it came to light that Sgro too had used the temporary foreign strippers program to import a Romanian performer who also ended up being a Liberal Party campaign worker in the end. So that's pretty convenient. How hard do you think Judy Sgro was really trying to end that strippers program? So what's my point? This sort of garbage is in the Liberal Party DNA. No matter how many quota hires and proclamations about whatever the current year is, the Liberals are who they are, and they have always been that way. They use women as props, but in reality, when the rubber meets the road, they treat them like trash as a means to an end, sort of like what they're doing to former Attorney General Jody-Wilson Raybould right now as we speak. The Liberals were more than happy to show off their shiny new Aboriginal female Attorney General as a symbol of their extreme wokeness, but when she wouldn't bend a knee and sacrifice her principles to please a powerful man like Justin Trudeau, to allow Trudeau to corrupt Canadian justice for political gains, the Liberals drove the bus over her. They demoted her, and then they called her a liar. The Liberals do not just turn a blind eye to the exploitation of women, they are showing everybody how it's done. One more time. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. What you just saw there is the daily video that I do here at The Rebel, but did you know that I have my own weekly full-length show? It's part of our slate of premium subscriber-only content. My show is aptly called The Gun Show, and we talk about issues facing Canadian families in a way that you will never see done in the mainstream media. But to get access to my show, you need to treat yourself to a Rebel subscription today.